Hello, this is Juliet Gladies Jayasuria. Welcome to Evaluate to Motivate segment. In this segment, we will be talking to champion evaluators to learn from them the art of evaluation. Today, we have with us Paul Omani, who is an Area District 71 champion for the year 2022 in the evaluation contest. Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Hello, Juliet. It's very good to have this opportunity to talk with you about evaluations.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming here. And let's begin with our questions. So the first one, tell us about your journey as an evaluator. When and how did you discover that evaluation is your strength?
I began evaluating people when I was a trainer in interpersonal skills before I came to Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters in 2015 after a career of at least 25 years of training people on interpersonal skills, for which I used video, helped people to review their own performance, and became used to offering feedback, as it was called. We, in the world of training people, interpersonal, it's called evaluations rather than, it's called feedback rather than evaluations.
That's fine. Giving feedback gave you some passion towards getting into evaluation. That's good to hear. So what are the strategies to be adopted to open an evaluation speech according to you, Paul?
You're talking now about evaluating a speaker and how best to do it. Well, one of the things I discovered in Toastmasters is that it is very unusual for the person who's made the speech to be asked to evaluate themselves at the beginning. And this means that in training, what I was used to doing was asking a person who had made a speech or used their interpersonal skills in some way to consider, how do they do? And how are you feeling now about what you did? So that gives information to the evaluator, I'll call the person, about, where is the person you're going to give feedback? Where are they? Are they thinking that they did brilliantly? They're very pleased. They're top of their game. They consider that they've done wonderfully. Or are they feeling that they've let themselves down in some way, or that their performance hasn't been as good as they'd like it to be? So you have an idea when you're evaluating somebody and you know where they are at. You have an idea whether your job is to help them recover from their disappointment or help them see the potential for continuous improvement rather than remaining at their current level, because continuous improvement is what everybody's looking for. But in Toastmasters, you don't know. You give somebody an evaluation and you're not sure who you're talking to after they've given their speech. And this is particularly interesting because you also have an audience and you are giving the evaluation to not just for the benefit of the individual who you're speaking to, but for the benefit of everybody else who has been present during the speech. So you have two responsibilities. And that's what I think makes it so interesting and such a challenge.
That's right. Well said. So how to give a 360-degree evaluation? So are there any techniques one can adopt to give well-rounded evaluations? What was your experience, Paul?
Did you say 360 degree?
Yes, 360 degree. Yes.
Well, my experience of 360-degree evaluation is very limited. It's limited to the project that, well, it started outside Toastmasters when I was a line manager and I had staff who I evaluated, who evaluated me. I had colleagues who evaluated me, and I had my own manager who evaluated me.
That's
and
right.
This was a quite an innovative approach that developed during the 1980s, really.
Yeah.
Now, when I came to Toastmasters, it was only when I started to do the current education program that I came across the idea of 360-degree feedback in Toastmasters. And I made an effort at one stage when I was doing the project, leading in a voluntary organization, if I remember it rightly, to seek 360-degree feedback. In other words, look for feedback from people I'd worked with.
No, in this context, Paul, what I'm trying to ask here is, so what are the different levels around the evaluation speech you are focusing on? That 360-degree on your own evaluation. That's what I'm actually focusing on.
Right. It's I should have clarified that. Right. Well, for me, the most important part of any speech, just for me now, this is where I come into it, is the content of the speech. So, but when you're evaluating somebody, it's really important to find out what do they think is the most important part. In some cases, people are less interested in the content of their speech than in the performance of their speech. And if, for example, their main aim is to practice their vocal variety, and they haven't got much interest in the content of their own speech, and you're playing the role of an evaluator, then in Toastmasters, the best thing to do is to focus on what they're interested in and then deal with the different aspects of vocal variety. And this may mean that you find yourself evaluating a speech that you find didn't have a good beginning that hooked the audience, didn't have a good ending, which gave the audience a gift to take away, and that where the structure, where the flow of the content didn't, juddered from place to place and didn't flow, the transitions weren't. But you have to concentrate, I think, as an evaluator on the aspects of vocal variety. And there are many, of course.
That's fantastic, Paul. So it's very important that we hook the audience, grab the attention, give the content, vocal variety, and try to conclude. So I think that was a well-rounded evaluation strategies which you had focused upon while you conversed with me. Having said all of them, now how can we effectively manage time to organize the evaluation speech?
Let me clarify something with you so I don't misunderstand. Are you thinking mainly of competitive evaluations in speech contests?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let me, I have to roll back then, because when you're evaluating a speech in a speech contest, you do not know what the main aspects of the test speakers plan to improve are. So in that case, the formula, which is that you would give in a contest, you would give 5 observations, focused observations, 3 of them being observations of what the person has done that you'd be encouraging them to do next time, and 2 of them being recommendations of things they could do next time they're delivering that speech, or maybe even delivering any speech. The thing to remember, I think, is that in a competition, giving a good speech when you are an evaluator, a speech that the audience will find satisfying and that the judges will find satisfying, is more important than giving a forensic analysis of the speech. And it does actually lead to questions like, if you're in your local club, you're practicing, for some people, a fairly forensic analysis, you dare not take that into a contest. The first thing you have to do in the contest is build a rapport and trust and authority with your audience. Well, we'll say the judges, so that they think that, oh, here's somebody worth listening to. I'm going to get something out of listening to this person. You have to be very gentle so that you will come across as a very supportive evaluator, because I believe that judges will, even though being supportive in an evaluation it may only be 10% of the evaluation. Certainly, I can't remember the exact percentage. The evaluation of the analysis of the speech is by far the biggest one.
Give more focus to the analysis of the speech in the body is more important, is what you say.
Well, it is in a contest, the two things, the analysis, which should be focused, and the recommendations. They are the vast majority of it. The third part is the being supportive, and I think the fourth part is summary.
Yeah. So while you said the summary, so let me ask this question to you. Is it important to conclude? And what methods do you prescribe for the conclusion or the summary?
Oh, in the summary, you would repeat the two recommendations which you would give, which are to change in some way. And you would definitely end on a very positive note, reminding the speaker of what they should do that they have already demonstrated for next time. It's really, I think you will score better in a contest if you end on a very positive note, even if you think that the poor old speaker needs to change an awful lot. You have to find the nugget, or as somebody once said, the strawberry in the middle of the cake to leave to be your last thing that you say. Now, it's also very useful to go back at the end of your evaluation speech to what you said at the very beginning. Audiences love it when the speech goes around and comes back to the beginning again. So whatever you did to capture the audience's attention at the beginning is it's very good tactic to return to that at the end. So in a way, the very last thing you say, I would suggest, is something that the audience liked at the very beginning. The second last thing you say is the positive encouragement to the speaker. But don't finish with giving positive encouragement to the speaker. After all, you are talking to an audience, you're talking to the judges, you're not talking to the individual speaker.
That's right. So how should a Toastmaster prepare for an evaluation contest, Paul? What do you think? So having said that, how should a Toastmaster prepare for an evaluation contest?
Well, I think the best thing to do is to get a piece of paper and divide it into 5 sections. And first of all, just remind yourself that you have to hook the audience. So put that down at the first top of the list. Secondly, decide in advance what you are going to include in your evaluation. So, for example, I think it's very good to bring in the the way the speaker began. How did the speaker hook the audience? That's terribly important. If the speaker hasn't hooked the audience, that's going to be a major weakness. So you want to find something in how the speaker began, which worked. You then need to concentrate on how the speech flowed. And that has to do with structure. That has to do with moving from one part to the next. By the way, you must be careful to avoid repeating any of the content of the speech. A little bit of it is probably good. A little bit of it so that the audience can be reminded of, what was the person actually talking about? So it isn't all about technique. And then it's good to make some notes on the end of the speech. So I would definitely be looking for something to say about the beginning, something to say about the middle, and something to say about the end. This is, they're really important. Now, ideally, and this is tricky to remember to do, you have to structure what you're saying so that the audience and the judges know that you're moving from one section to the other. So you have to signal that I'm going to talk about the beginning, I'm going to talk about the middle, I'm going to talk about the end. So we got 3 parts that I'm going to talk about. That helps. That helps. I think that helps judges to follow what is happening.
Yeah, it's good to have a structure and to deliver it according to the structure. That's nice to hear. So as a champion evaluator, what is your advice to the new Toastmasters to prepare themselves for the evaluation contest?
I think the first piece of advice I give is that to realize that this is a speech, during which you will give some recommendations. Some of the recommendations are to continue doing something that you've seen, and some are to change. So there are 2 types of recommendations you're going to make. So it's really important to think of this in terms of what are you going to say at the beginning that will stand out from the other competitors? So my advice would be do not begin by saying contest chair, Toastmasters, noble guests. Do not begin there. Begin with something that immediately gets the audience listening to you. Don't begin with so get the audience listening to you. You can then say, after you've done that, you got their attention, you can also then say contest chair, chief judge, or however you're going to say that. Probably best if you're talking to an international audience to make sure you address the people in the room. Because cultures have different ways of
acceptance.
Some cultures, if you didn't address the dignitaries, you would probably be frowned on by the judges. So I would say that that my piece of advice is really about treating it like a speech. Practice, practice, practice. If you're going to go in for a speech, being an evaluator, make sure, if you possibly can, that you have given at least 10 evaluations in the last 6 months. Otherwise, treat the contest as an opportunity to practice, and don't worry about winning, because particularly at club level and area level, you're going to be judged by inexperienced judges very often, and some of them won't even look at the criteria, won't be guided by it. They won't read the guidance that's on the back of the judge's ballot. And if they do read it, they won't make any difference to them. So they may very well already have things in their head rather than the judging criteria. Now, if you're at the higher levels, it's important to be led by the judging criteria. And I would say practice being very motivational, but do not forget to give 2 recommendations. If you're starting out doing it, particularly at club and area level, it's perfectly okay to give the speaker lots of compliments, like your body language was excellent. I relished the way that you used pauses. I was dumbfounded by your talent when you did this or that. They're okay to throw those things in. Now, they are not focused. Use the word because. Use the word because. That is where you get really marks, I believe, when you say, I recommend you do this because it makes a difference.
Okay.
Many of the others won't use the word because. In fact, you'll stand out from the crowd if you say why the thing the person did matters.
That's nice. So practice makes a man perfect. So it's very important that we practice, and it's so important to take initiatives to even take part in area and club level, is what Paul said. And it's absolutely fantastic to hear all your answers and your piece of advices. So thank you so much for your valuable time and knowledge that you had shared with us today. So hope this will help all the budding evaluators in their Toastmasters journey. Thank you, Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Juliet. It was a pleasure talking to you about a subject that's so dear to both of our hearts.
That's very true. Thank you so much. And this is Juliet signing off.